Welcome back to On the Grid Podcast, Season 3, Episode 14 now. We're already on Episode 14. I don't know how. It is the Imola race review. Oh, wait, hang on a second. No, it is. Imola was cancelled, obviously. So we'll talk about that in a second. Joining me today, as ever, is Adrian. How are you?
Yeah, I was about to say it's not an Imola review. It's a preview slash news. But yeah, I'm good. Um, Obviously a bit sad that we didn't have a race last weekend. It would have been ideal to have a bit of a race, have a bit of a ramble about Imola. But I mean, safety comes first and whatnot, so that had to be put on hold. So
Yes, of course. Yeah, it was the right decision to cancel Imola. We did mention it on our podcast, but we kept our predictions in. For those of you wondering. But we are back, and hopefully we're going to actually have a Grand Prix this weekend. There is rain forecasted for Monaco, because it's Monaco. It's not Spain. They've switched it around this year. They have switched it around this year. I had to check myself before
Oh,
recording this.
really?
It's Monaco this weekend, not Spain. And there
Oh,
is, I know. It shocked me as well. But
I'm chuffed.
there is raining forecasted for Monaco all weekend. Not as severe, I don't think, but I think it's still looming. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. So why don't we look at one of the biggest talking points, obviously Imola being cancelled, but someone who has come out of it and has helped a lot in the recovery effort is a certain driver named Yuki Tsunoda. He has been helping. He's been fundraising on his social media to support the victims affected by this by the flooding, and he's been on the streets. He's been helping clear out cafes and helping people who've been affected by it. What do you think about that? It's brilliant, isn't it? It's brilliant to see
Well,
someone.
I mean, you don't see it. You don't see it every day, especially with the fortunes that F1 drivers make. You'll obviously see the drivers obviously put out, oh, we're so saddened by it. The safety of the people in the Faenza area is more important and whatnot. But Yuki Tsunoda, I mean, he's one of them drivers where we've talked about him very highly. We've rated him so much throughout the season. Obviously, he's been a consistent performer. And then to come out and obviously help the effort, obviously AlphaTauri based near that region, so you're kind of expecting him to be based there for the weekend. But for him to come out and actually help the effort and just help fundraising, etc. It's actually very heartening. It's actually just seeing a driver go out there. Obviously, I think he even put it out on social media, him sweeping the streets of Faenza and with people, and it's actually very heartening to see that a driver like Yuki Tsunoda, you wouldn't think that a person like him, he seems very shy and can kind of like, you wouldn't expect it to come from him, but for him to actually do the fundraising and help people out in the area
Yeah, indeed.
only gains my appreciation and my round of applause because it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's been one of the drivers of the season this season, driving what has been a terrible AlphaTauri car, comprehensively beating his teammate. Probably there's only one other person that comes to mind where you think about how much how bested their teammate, and that's Fernando Alonso. He's a two-time world champion, so it's not bad company to have. But as you said, you rarely see drivers actually standing for something bigger than themselves. You have seen it in recent years with Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, but other than those two, I don't think you can name me one driver on the current grid who is standing for something bigger than themselves, standing up against whatever it is. And it's great to see Tsunoda do that and follow in the footsteps and help people in the local area, because that's the AlphaTauri home. That's where he is. That's where he lives. So it is good to see. It's good to see that. Back talking about Formula One, there is some rumours circulating about Ferrari and a certain Lewis Hamilton. Apparently, Ferrari are going to offer a £40 million contract to Lewis Hamilton. I think he's on about 30, 35 at the minute at Mercedes. Do you think there's any substance to that? Would you like to see Lewis Hamilton in Ferrari red?
You know what? Thinking about it, for me, being a Ferrari fan and for you being a Lewis Hamilton fan, what a Titan collision it would be to see Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. Think about it. Lewis Hamilton wins his 8th World Championship at Ferrari, beating Michael Schumacher, who pretty much did it throughout his whole career with Ferrari. Think of it. think of the magnitude that it would create in the Formula One world if he did that. Realistically, for myself, I don't see it happening. I just do not see it happening. I'm gonna go back to earth now. It would be a cool prospect to see Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari, and hopefully Ferrari would bring a good car for him, because otherwise I wouldn't see Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari if we didn't have a competitive car. It'd be a cool prospect, but no, I don't really see it happening. You've got to be realistic. I think Lewis Hamilton sticks with Mercedes. I don't think he goes elsewhere. I think he's gunning with that for that eighth world title with Mercedes. But if he does, happy days. You can join the Prancing Horses. I don't mind it, Lewis, but I just don't see it happening. For what? For 5 million extra? Is it worth it?
Yeah, it would be nice to see, but from a logistical point of view, why would Hamilton leave a team fighting for second for another team fighting for second? And there is a little bit messy over at Ferrari at the minute from an outside perspective. Obviously, you know a bit more than I do, but obviously Fred Fisher has come in this season. You can't really know what impact he's going to have until at least at the very earliest next season. It would be a huge gamble. Ferrari have gone backwards since the start of last year when they comfortably had the quickest car for the first half of last season. And then there was regulation changes and they just fell back further and further to a point where arguably they're the fourth quickest car. And that is not that's not the bet you want to be making when you're 37 years old and you've only got a few years left in F1 and you're gunning for an eighth world title. I think the realistic option is Hamilton stays at Mercedes, sees the development, see how they progress. And if Ferrari, are on the up next season and Mercedes is still not where they want to be, yeah, maybe he does go in there. Besides, I don't think you can. Obviously, Leclerc is set there for a while, so it would be Sainz's seat he'd be taking. I don't think Sainz is done enough to be sacked by Ferrari as much as when Lewis Hamilton comes calling. You make space, but I think it'd be incredibly harsh on Carlos Sainz as well, who has earned his seat at Ferrari. This
you see Leclerc going the opposite direction to Mercedes.
That would be interesting. To be fair, I have said before, I've thought this over. I think when Hamilton retires, if Leclerc still has these issues at Ferrari, he will be the one that replaces Hamilton at Mercedes.
Oh,
I could see that happening.
Yes.
I think we've spoken about that on the podcast before, but I could see that happening, and I think that'd be a fantastic career move for him. I'm not sure because obviously Leclerc at the minute is the number one driver at Ferrari, but I don't know. I don't know if I see him coming the other way. I don't see him leaving Ferrari in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it at the moment. But the thing is, if Lewis Hamilton was to jump ship to Ferrari, I reckon Lewis Hamilton would be going for the first driver role instead of going for the second driver role.
You don't hire a 7-time world champion as a second driver.
Yeah, so that's the thing. The thing is, I don't think Sainz would be getting the sack. I think Sainz would be there to stay. And I think Leclerc would have to go the other direction. That's my thinking. I think realistically, is Leclerc thinking about it? Would Leclerc let Lewis Hamilton storm into the Ferrari building without having an offer lined up from Mercedes or from a top team? Realistically, would he want to go backwards? The answer is
probably
no.
Not.
Yeah, the
probably
answer
not.
is no. So realistically, if Lewis Hamilton comes calling and takes the first driver role, realistically, it's either Red Bull or Mercedes where Leclerc goes, or Aston Martin. But then again, there's Fernando Alonso there, so that's a no-no. So realistically, it's only going to be Mercedes.
True, yeah, that's something you have to consider. Leclerc's not going to accept a number 2 role at Ferrari, especially when he's been, he has sort of been number 1 for 3 years now. So yeah, it would be difficult to take a back seat, and maybe it would be the other way. But it depends on what Ferrari want, whether they want to continue to build for the future. Ferrari, Leclerc was the youngest Ferrari driver in the history. But they want to continue to nurture him and hopefully become a world champion for them. I could see that happening, but yeah, I don't see it happening at all. I don't think Hamilton would go to Ferrari, especially at this stage. Maybe in a few years' time, if Mercedes continues to struggle. But we'll get on to our predictions now for the Monaco Grand Prix, not for the Spanish Grand Prix or for Imola. So, Adrian, why don't you give me your 2-star predictions?
So the 2-star predictions for me, I see in Monaco, I see a double Q1 elimination for Williams. I think that the twisty, turny, kind of logistics of Monaco, apart from the one or two straights that Monaco has to offer, I think that Williams will struggle around there. Albon, I think, will probably qualify on the brink of Q2. I think he'll be 16th, and then Logan Sargent, I think I see him struggling again, once again this weekend, qualifying probably 19th or 20th. And then for my 2-star prediction, in recent history, this star prediction hasn't boded well, and I've not gone for a Leclerc win, XYZ. I've gone for both Ferraris in the top 5 in the race. I think that both of them will have a steady race, but I don't see him challenging Red Bulls at all, or even the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. You kind of get the gist for my race predictions there. But I see the 2 Ferraris in and around the top 5. But unfortunately, I don't see them challenging for a podium in the top 5. They will have to settle.
Very interesting. Now, my 2 kind of go hand in hand, and it is a little bit on the opposite of yours. I've gone for, as much as I wouldn't like to see it, don't want to see it. I've gone for Leclerc's Monaco curse to continue. I've gone for a Leclerc DNF. And the second one, moving on from that, is over 5 DNFs. I think if there's rain, if there's, the changeable track condition, we saw there was a lot of mistakes being made last year. I think there'll be over 5 DNFs for me. And going into qualifying, on pole, Max Verstappen. I've gone for Fernando Alonso to take P2, Sergio Perez 3rd, Hamilton 4th, and Sainz 5th. So what are your top 5?
Qualifying, I have gone with the inevitable Max Verstappen pole position. I've stuck Sergio Perez in P2. I've gone with Charles Leclerc in 3rd, but it wouldn't surprise me if Leclerc stuck it on pole and then, like you said, is curse struck. Probably goes into the barrier, causes a red flag and keeps for P1 and then doesn't start the race, as he did last year or the year before. Can't remember which one it was. I've gone with Fernando Alonso in 4th. Then I've gone for the trusty George Russell in 5th. I think his qualifying performances have been very good, and I think he keeps it up.
Interesting. For the race, I've gone for a Fernando Alonso win. You heard it here first. I'm going for Fernando Alonso win. He's made a big deal about this season. He thinks he can win a race, and he thinks Monaco is the place to do it. We saw the defensive prowess of Fernando at Monaco last year, and I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to win. Come back to me next week when it inevitably fails and he finishes 3rd. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go for it. I'm going to say he wins. Max Verstappen in 2nd, Sergio Perez 3rd, and I'm going to stick with Hamilton and Sainz in 4th and 5th.
Well, I wasn't expecting that one. I've gone relatively boring and straightforward. I've gone with another inevitable Max Verstappen victory. I've gone for a Red Bull 1-2 with Perez in 2nd. I see Fernando Alonso overtaking Charles Leclerc in the race to finish 3rd once again to complete that trio for the 5th time, I think. Yeah, 5th time in the last couple of races. And I see the 2 Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, like I said, 4th and 5th. I think they won't be challenging at all. I think that top 3 will probably claw away. And I think, like you said, I see a defensive prowess from Fernando Alonso to keep a hold of that final podium place.
No, sorry, it's the 4th time, because in Baku, Leclerc finished 3rd, and Australia, Hamilton finished 2nd. So yeah, the 4th time this season. But they are our Monaco Grand Prix race predictions. Thank you all for listening. A shorter episode to build us into the weekend. We will be back next week for our race review around the historic streets.
Hopefully,
Adrian,
if the race doesn't get cancelled.
Yeah, or we'll be back next week doing our Spain predictions, and hopefully one of the 3 races will go ahead. Either way, we will be back definitely next week for another podcast. And thank you guys for listening. In the meantime, we will see you in the next one.